By now, you've probably heard my magic wand story. It's a brand that's been part of my personal journey for more than 20 years. But no matter how many times I sing Magic Wand's praises, I'll never be able to fully capture the story of this incredible brand. Well, now journalist and author Kate Sloan just completed a limited audio series documenting the history and impact that Magic Wand has created over the last 56 years. It's called Making Magic. And the series chronicles Magic Wand's incredible brand story through interviews with nearly 40 experts, performers, business owners, educators, and fans. So I got a sneak preview of the series, and what I loved is that Kate weaves together snippets from all their interviews into this amazing story arc. She covers Magic Wand's journey from appliance store massager to its legendary influence on culture and sexual independence, and it's all just fascinating. The first episodes of Making Magic are available now at makingmagicseries.com or on all popular podcast platforms. Just search for Making Magic or visit makingmagicseries.com today. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily. I'm Dr. Emily, and on today's show, I'm talking about why it's important to talk about sex, how to plan a sexy staycation, and how to communicate what you want in the bedroom. All this and more. Thanks for listening. The kids were all like watching TV or doing something, and she pulled them into the pantry. It's like a walk-in pantry in the kitchen, and they had like a quickie in the pantry.
Yeah, nothing like some good hot summer sex, right?
Yes, girl, yes.
Back when I was younger, going to adult toy store was sort of creepy and had a lot of strangers hanging around there and guys in trench coats.
And then I'll tease them. I'll use it maybe on their shaft. If I'm like going down to them, I'll like tickle their balls with it. It becomes our toy.
Look into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by sex. Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
You're listening to Sex with Emily. I'm Dr. Emily, and I'm here to help you prioritize your pleasure and liberate the conversation around sex. All right, obviously, I talk a lot about sex here on the show. I mean, I never run out of things to talk about when it comes to sex. But we are starting Sex Ed September here, so I thought it'd be good to go all the way back to the basics. I mean, why should we talk about sex? Why don't we encourage healthy sex conversations? And it is hard. I get it. Talking about sex is vulnerable. It's vulnerable to talk about our feelings. And since we don't talk about it, we have shame. We have shame around our sex drives, around our desire, what we want. So I'm here today to dispel all of that because I'm telling you, talking about sex is 100% good for us. It helps us figure out what we like, helps us explore pleasure, and gets us closer to our partner. And actually talking about it will free us from the shame. Later on in the show, I'm going to talk about planning a fun, sexy staycation. I also take calls and questions about sharing a vibrator during sex, lube shooters, what are they? Why do you need to know about them? And how to communicate what you want in the bedroom. All right, enjoy the show. Do you ever wonder why we don't want to talk about sex? Like, why is it so hard to even say the word sex? Why is it so taboo? If you think about it, like every time I tell someone what I do for a living, I think it's getting a little better, but I'll say Sex with Emily. That's the name of my show. And they go, oh, you talk about sex. And there's definitely a judgment. I'll be at a party and I'll say, oh, I'm a sex therapist. And then there's the people who are like, tell me everything. And then there's the people who are like, oh, I'm going to go refill my drink. Those are the people that don't want to talk to me about sex or that are uncomfortable. Like if you think about it, we're here because people had sex, right? In the traditional sense of the word. Intercourse happened, sperm fertilized egg, and then baby came out. But yet, not only don't we feel comfortable talking about it, but we don't teach it in schools, at least not in a way that's accurate. So currently, 24 states in the District of Columbia mandate that we teach sex education. 34 states say, we got to teach HIV education. And so every state has some kind of guidance how and when sex education should be taught, but it's up to the individual school districts. But only 13 states require that sex ed has to be medically accurate, right? So there's actually facts that are medically accurate. So what are we supposed to do? Why should sex be comfortable then to talk about? And then if we grew up in a home where it was not talked about, maybe we grew up in a religious background or culturally shamed for talking about sex, or we grew up constantly hearing that sex is wrong or it's only for procreation or wait till we're married and touching ourselves and self-pleasure is taboo, why would we be set up to talk about sex? We wouldn't. My sex ed was like in 7th grade, and it was a mixed class of boys and girls. And all I remember is some kid raised his hand and said, "Can we have sex underwater?" That's all I remember. And the teacher shamed him and said, "That's a bad question." Listen, here's the rules about talking about sex. There's no bad questions. We all have questions around sex. This whole month, September, we're going to focus on different aspects of sex ed. Because I feel like people always say, "Who's your audience?" And I was like, it's literally everyone. I hear from people who are 18 to 83. And what I realize is a lot of us have the same questions. Sometimes there's the first infraction, right? When we're kids, maybe we were touching ourselves, right? We had our hands down our pants or we were rubbing up against the bed and we might not even remember it. It's like our first offense. Maybe we were 5 years old and our grandmother walked by and said, "Stop touching yourself," or "That's private," or "That's disgusting," or "Don't do that." And then that becomes our baseline for sex. It just takes one person shaming us for us to feel that it's somehow wrong. And we're thinking, maybe as a kid, we're thinking, but that felt good. Or maybe we went to some, repeated learning place where they kept saying, if you masturbate, you're going to go blind, or it's really shameful. And maybe we feel bad about our bodies, right? We think, well, I've heard about this sex thing, but if I don't love my body and I don't want anyone to see it. And it's also really confusing messages because people are like, but we're so much more sexual now. There's sex everywhere. Porn, you can get porn. Kids are seeing porn at 8 years old on their smartphones and on their iPads. So we're so hypersexual in America. But the truth is, yes, we see more sex everywhere. We have more access to sex, but that doesn't mean that we are hyper educated around sex, that we are sexually healthy. Sexual health and wellness is such a strong emerging category right now everywhere. You go to the drugstore now and you see there's a sexual health and wellness aisle. That wasn't even allowed before. And sometimes they even sell vibrators. That just started, 10 years ago. I've been doing this for 15 years ago. And when they started selling vibrators at Target, it was a whole thing, right? But why don't we? Why is it so not safe? You're listening to this show because you want to get the information. So I think it's important to look at our own selves and think, well, yeah, I'm really not comfortable with it. I don't tell anybody that I listen to your podcast. I wouldn't tell my friends. And I always encourage you, I want you to be that person in your friend group. If no one's ever talked about it, why can't you be the one who's like, I realize we've never talked about sex, but what's your views on it? How important is pleasure in your life? Do you masturbate? What's your sex life like? Here's some of the problems. Let's talk about the problems for not talking about sex. As a result of never hearing anyone talk about it, not our neighbors, not our parents, not our friends. As a result of that, we tend to look at what we do see about sex. We look at porn and we think, that must be how sex happens, which you all know if you've been listening, that, what we see in traditional pornography is not an accurate representation of how sex actually should happen. We don't see safe sex. We don't see the warm up. We don't see the awkward moments. We don't see people using protection. We don't see them using lubrication. People go right into anal sex without any warm up. Women are having orgasms in porn without any stimulation. None of it makes sense because it's performative. It's actually fiction, right? Learning how to have sex by watching porn is like learning to drive by watching Fast and the Furious. It's just not accurate. So we're looking at all these things, and then we make assumptions that our neighbors must be having great sex because they never talk about it. They seem so happy. I see them walking around the neighborhood and they're holding hands. They're the happiest couple in the world. And then we compare ourselves to porn, to our neighbors, to this ideal that sex is pleasurable for everybody and everybody must be having orgasms all the time. This is where I started with my show. I assumed that I was somehow broken because I wasn't having orgasms through penetration. I really thought, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Why am I broken? And come to find out, within the first month of doing this show that, I get it. Only 20% of women are. So then I started to unpack it, and all we're seeing is penetrative sex being the standard. We equate the penis to the vagina when really if we think about it being accurate, the penis and the clitoris are way more, they have similar makeup, similar erectile tissue. That's where really the pleasure centers are. The clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings. The penis has 4,000 nerve endings. It's not about penis and vagina. So then all of our focus goes towards penetration, penetration, penetration. And then all the other stuff is like tossed aside. Like we stop kissing when we're in relationships for a long time. We stop finding out what pleases our partner. We don't, seek information about it. So we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Now, the other reason why we might not talk about sex is because maybe we had some kind of trauma growing up. I think it's like 3 out of 8 women have had some kind of trauma in their life, a sexual assault or a sexual trauma. Men have this too. So if we've had a trauma and we've had some assault or abuse, well, we're certainly not only are we not comfortable talking about sex, but we're not even comfortable being sexual. And as a result of that trauma, we might have shut down. We might have decided that we are just not sexual or we're not open for business ever. And we fake our way through sex. And that's part of it as well. And just so you know, trauma is such a huge beast. It's like if we have experienced any sort of trauma, we absolutely need to seek therapy about it. We need to work that through because that just kind of sticks with us throughout our lifetime. It just sort of, unfortunately, gets louder and louder. Also, let's just talk about self-pleasure and masturbation. When I was growing up, and I kind of think it's the same right now because I've been spending a lot of time talking to my friends' kids and my own kids in my life about sex, that it's always glorified male masturbation. Remember American Pie? It was all about male masturbation. You're always seeing men masturbating. But you never see women masturbating. You never glorified it. So it's really shameful. I recently did a Zoom call with a bunch of 18-year-old girls, women, asking them about sex. And they were all friends, but they also were a little bit uncomfortable talking to each other about masturbation still, because it, again, still feels shameful and wrong. And we're just uncomfortable with the notion of pleasure, right? And not even just with masturbation, but in life, we think, well, I don't deserve pleasure, or pleasure is going to come after I work, after I get these 10 things done, or after I put the kids to bed, or after I accomplish all these tasks. Well, then I'll allow myself over to pleasure. But just the whole concept of pleasure and even giving ourselves pleasure is just something that we don't feel that we deserve. Again, we feel it's wrong. I even had someone call into the show saying that every time she masturbated, maybe it was a man. I hear this from everybody, actually, that they feel this shame. It's like a shame over. They're like, there was something somehow wrong with me that I just masturbated. And there's a lot of reasons for that too. It's because it's secretive. A lot of times we do it in secret. We're hiding it from our partners. Maybe our partner banned pornography from our life. A lot of you email me and call about this. You're like, my partner told me I couldn't watch porn anymore, so now I'm like in the basement or I'm in my car. If you grew up every weekend, you were going to some religious institution or your family was saying, don't masturbate, and you could be 30 years later and you're masturbating, there's still that echo, we talk about in your brain that's like, this is somehow wrong, this is shameful, this is dirty. It's okay to have an orgasm and it's okay to have pleasure. Doesn't feel right. So why would we talk about it? Why would we do that? And I never heard anyone talk about it, even though what my mom said. And what I find now is that a lot of parents do the same thing, is they say, oh, we're very open in our household about sex. Oh, I told my kids if they have any questions, just to ask me. We're very open. And my mom was the same way. She says, if you have any questions, Emily, ask me. But the problem is, as kids, we don't know what the questions are. We assume that we know everything about sex. We're like, yeah. You make babies, and there's something about it that is super taboo, and I'll do that when I'm an adult, right? So we don't even know what the questions are. Here's the other thing is that we kind of suffer silently through bad sex and through pain. 80% of women are going to experience pain at some point in their life. And of those women, they're never going to talk about it because, well, since we don't talk about it, they don't realize that they're not alone, that there's so many other women that are silently suffering. But they're never sitting down with their friends going, so I had this really painful sex experience last night. That we assume that since we haven't heard it or seen it, that we must be alone. And so that's why I want us all to just kind of look at what's keeping me from talking about sex? Is it shame? Is it trauma? Is it my upbringing? Is it because I don't love my body? Is it because I feel like I don't have the answers? What is it that is your roadblock to pleasure? Because pleasure is our birthright. We all deserve pleasure. We all deserve to have really healthy sex lives. We want to be accepted for our sexuality and our fantasies. Sometimes the shame goes into, well, I don't want to tell my partner I'm bisexual, or I don't want to tell my partner that I want to wear women's underwear, but I'm a man. There's all this shame around what actually turns us on, our fantasies and our desires. We're like, well, I can't get turned on with this kind of sex. So it's just all, if we started talking about sex from the jump, and we started to talk about sex when we were even kids and it wasn't shameful. I was with a friend the other day and she has twin girls who are 12. And she said, it's interesting. One of them is super comfortable with her body and she walks around. And the other one has recently started like covering up. Maybe she's 11, started covering up and covering her body. She said, but I don't think that was us. She goes, I think that we're very open. I don't know where that came from. It's just innate in a child. And I don't think that's true. I think, and this is no shame on any parents because no one's doing this. The only great model I've seen is in the Netherlands, is really the only place where they talk about it, is they start teaching kids about, there's actually sexual health classes when kids are like 5. And don't freak out. Everyone's like, oh, 5. This is why we don't teach sex, because people think the more sex you have, if I teach about sex, they're going to be running around having sex. What they do with young kids is they teach them the accurate names for their body parts. So like, this is the vulva, the external part of the vagina. This is your penis. This is your frenulum. They just teach them what they need, what they can comprehend at that age. And then they touch on consent a little bit, like it's your body. And if someone tries to touch you that's not, that you don't know, or it's not consensual, you have the right to say no. And then they keep answering their questions with every age with accurate information. And then when they start teaching them about healthy relationships, what it feels like if you start to have a crush on somebody, and they just meet kids where they're at. And what they teach a lot about pleasure. They teach about masturbation. They also teach about safe sex and, STDs and pregnancy. But if you think about it, in America, we teach all fear-based sex ed. It's like, don't get pregnant, don't get an STD, all these things. It's fearful. And we're like, well, why would I ever want to have sex? But what they do in the Netherlands is they kind of say, well, there's some pleasure and here's consent and here's what a healthy relationship looks like. And you should use a condom in these situations. And when you're not sexually healthy, it looks like this. And what they found is in these studies is that now there's less rape, there's less bullying, there's more pleasure. A kid will, a young person who has sex will tell their parents, I've had sex, and they celebrate. And they might even ask if they had an orgasm or if they had pleasure. It's a very open conversation. And that could be making you shudder right now. Like, oh, that would be awful. Why? I could never do that. It's like, think about it, but why? What's the alternative? The alternative is that we're just sending our kids off to go have sex. It's like, go have fun with being an adult. You can't have sex to your own adult, but now you're going to have it. Go figure it out. I mean, how did you figure it out? So that's what I want you to start today. Think about, what are my roadblocks? Why am I not talking about it? And how can I challenge my beliefs around sex and talking to people I love about sex and make a change for the better? All right, more Sex with Emily after this break. And thank you, everybody, for supporting our sponsors who help keep this show free. Let's talk to Sarah, 35, in Arkansas. She has some fun summer sex stories. Yay, Sarah. Tell me about your summer sex.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, so how's it going?
So good. I can't wait to hear.
Good.
I'm so glad you're having sexy summer sex.
Yeah, nothing like some good hot summer sex, right?
Yes, girl, yes. Tell me everything.
Okay, I've been married for 13 years this summer. We've got 3 kiddos, and we're actually closing on a new home tomorrow. And it has been really fun to just have, to know that, like, okay, these are the last few nights we're going to have in this house that we've lived in for almost a decade, and let's just have some good sex to kind of commemorate all the love we have for the house, and it's been really good.
That's
and
beautiful.
then we're going to have new house sex.
Tell me about one memory from your old house, from your sex, to celebrate the old house sex. Anything fun? What'd you do?
Yeah, so one of the first things that we did in the old house was kind of christen each room, minus the bathroom, because
Right. Yeah.
So that's a really good memory.
That's a good
we're
thing,
just looking forward. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
I
just
love
looking
it.
forward to making those memories and christening the new rooms.
I love
and
it.
the new house.
Sarah, congratulations. Really, buying a house is a big step. A new house, a new chapter.
It is.
So congratulations. And here's
Thank you
to
so
many
much,
more years of great
Emily.
sex. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for calling. So it's almost Labor Day, which I can't believe it. Like, where did the summer go? And I know I feel that sometimes every year. I'm like, how is it already Labor Day? But really, this year was, not quite the typical summer. It's also interesting because, yes, it's back to school time, but maybe your kids aren't going back to school. Like, they're not literally they're going back to Zoom. I think we still have to make the most about what is left, of the summer. But in thinking about the summer winding down, I want to know if you've hit any items on your sex bucket list. Maybe you don't have a sex bucket list, but I'm going to give you some ideas here because I got an email from Instagram, 31-year-old. He said he needs some staycation planning. How do you plan a sexcation? Do I just plan it? Do we do it together? He's 31 and married. So I got to thinking, how do we plan a great staycation? I have a few ideas for you. I have a subscription box, which has been on hold during quarantine. It's actually a staycation sex box because I know a lot of you are home for the summer or you're staying at home or trips are canceled. And it's really cool because you get a little card from me explaining the way to work everything. There's a vibrator in there. There's some massage oil. There's lubes. There's just all the fun things that I always talk to you about in a box that are made perfect for your summer staycation. So that's just one thing. And then you also get it 4 times a year. That's at sexwithemily.com/box if you want to check it out. But let's talk about some ideas because if you aren't taking a trip this year like you normally would have, maybe you always go on vacation, but now you couldn't, what do you do that sort of spice things up or makes it a little bit different? And now I think we have to remember this, that typically when we're thinking about, well, what would be a bucket list or how do we keep it interesting, it has to do with novelty. And that could even just be a matter of spicing it up. You don't have to have a bucket list, but it typically comes down to doing something that is novel, something that is a little bit outside of your routine. I think that right now, more than ever, if you've noticed this is really the time to use our imagination and to have fun. Because that's something we have control of. We have control of our imagination and what we want to happen. And we can pretty much make things happen. So the first easy thing, hook up somewhere new. So outside the bedroom, I don't care if it's in the kitchen, if it's in the pantry in the kitchen. I have a friend who has 3 kids. She lives in Chicago. She called me and she said, guess what we did? My husband and I, the kids were all like watching TV or doing something, and she pulled them into the pantry. It's like a walk-in pantry in the kitchen, and they had like a quickie in the pantry. And it was novel and it was different. It was unexpected. They've been together like 15 years, and she was like, we're doing it in the pantry. So hook up somewhere new. Just change the location. You could do some teasing. So this is what I love. And I think there is the lost art of the tease. Like, when was the last time you did a build up towards sex? You sort of sent your partner a sexy text. Maybe it's a picture of you in a certain position and telling them what you're waiting for when they come home, whispering in their ear what you want to do. Like, maybe you're at a family picnic that's going to end soon and you're like, when we get home, I'm going to give you the most incredible sexy back rub. Something like that. Use your imagination. I myself am considering taking a road trip because it just seems safer these days. Hook up under the stars. You could even do this in your backyard. You could put down a blanket, light some candles, give each other like a sexy massage. I'm really obsessed with this XN's massage oil. It comes in all these flavors. If you've been looking for a sexy massage oil, it comes in a great bottle. It's a great gift, but it's not oil. It feels like oil, but it's super smooth on your skin. They also have a really cool lube that tastes them. They have this raspberry lube. I have it right here. Sometimes I eat it when I'm hungry in the middle of the show. They have this raspberry lubricant that tastes like, you're like, why would I want raspberry? Just taste it. It is such great tasting lube. So getting something novel and like putting out some tea lights, laying down a blanket outside in your backyard, and then like putting some, oil on your partner and massaging their body, surprising them with that, and then switching terms, under the night sky is, a beautiful thing to do. And it's something different. I don't think I can emphasize enough the art of the tease, the art of massage because listen, a lot of us are not in the mood for sex. We're stressed out. We have things to worry about. The kids are around. We're worried about work, money, finances, all the things. But when you just get your hands on your partner and you start to kind of calm them, even if it's like a 10-minute massage, what it does is not only does it feel good, but it calms the nervous system. And you'll find that your mood can completely change. And then you'll totally be in the mood for anything. Maybe it's just a massage that night, or maybe you find once you breathe into the massage that, I'm in the mood for sex. All this touching actually got me in the mood for it. It's sort of one of these things that I think we forget to do. This is what I'm about. I'm reminding you about how to have sex, a little bit of sex this summer. That's what we're talking about here. Oh, here's a great one. It's still really hot in lots of places. It's super hot in Los Angeles. Temperature play. Now, temperature play is really fun because what you could do is, here's some scenarios. You could take an ice cube. You could blindfold your partner so they don't really know what's coming, and you can incorporate this with the massage oil. You say, babe, I got this. I want you to lay down, put a blindfold over them, or use a handkerchief, which we all have right now, right? Bandana. And then you can have a little bowl of ice cubes. Oh, I have the best idea. Put a bowl of ice cubes next to the bed, and then you can get some of this Xens, also makes this warming massage oil in the most unbelievable flavors. But it's temperature play. So you could first take an ice cube and put it in your mouth, like a little ice cube. And then you could let that ice cube, you could either let that drip onto their skin. You could also take it and drag it across their chest. You could tease them with it. You could just take it out of your mouth and your mouth's really cold, and you could perform oral. Then you could take some of the warming massage oil and warm them down with some warm oil. You could also do this with a massage candle. We've got a bunch of those as well as our site. Massage candles are really fun because it's atmosphere. You light it for a few minutes and then you blow it out and then you pour it on your partner. It's like this warm, it's not a regular candle. Don't do it with a regular candle because that hurts. But a massage candle is just like luxurious oil, like it turns into oil. It's not waxy or messy or sticky or hot. So doing this thing of playing with an ice cube, swirling it around in your mouth, playing with hot and cold are all things you can do this summer or this weekend. Those are some of my tips. Let's talk to Jonathan, 45, in Iowa. Hi, Jonathan. What's going on?
Oh, hi, Emily. How you doing tonight?
So good. Tell me what's going on. Thanks for calling.
Yes, actually started listening to you probably about 2 weeks ago. I'm working in Iowa helping try to get people's lives back together after the big storm, but caught on to your XM Sirius channel, been listening to some of your old episodes and some of your ones from yesterday. But I just want to make a comment for all the males that listen out there and go ahead and back you when I say that using sex toys on your female partner is wonderful and great. I just want to tell all the males that in my 20-plus years experiencing sex through marriages or through women, using sex tools, I look at them and I tell men this all the time, or my friends, it's like working on your car, You got different tools for different jobs on a car. You shouldn't feel intimidated, and your number one, of course, is to pleasure your other partner, regardless of what you use.
Exactly, Jonathan. The job gets done.
Yeah. Yes, the job gets done, and there's different toys. There's different stores you can go to. You can probably remember, well, I don't know, I'm probably a lot older than you, but back when I was younger, going to a sex, adult toy store was sort of creepy, and had a lot of strangers hanging around there and guys in trench coats. But now you got adult stores that are cleaner than some of the Walmarts and Targets you go into.
It's so true.
Staff that can help you,
Exactly. Oh my God, Jonathan. You got to come work for us. This is amazing, Jonathan. It's true, though. Yeah, I know. I grew up in Michigan, and there was this one off the highway. I think it was called Pink Lady or something. I don't remember what it was called, but it was so sketchy. It was pink and black. It was, I was driving to college. It was a pink light flashing with a naked woman. And then, same thing, men in trench coats. You have to go to the back of the store. It was so titillating. No, they're beautiful stores that you walk in. It's totally fine. There's so many toys. Yeah, and it's just another tool in your toolkit, in your sexual toolkit. Exactly, Jonathan.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the other thing, too, is I just want to say, yes, lube's important. Instead of having one lube on your nightstand, you should have multiple lubes because there's different lubes for different situations.
Exactly. Oh, my God. Love this, Jonathan. What's your favorite lube? Do you silicone or water-based?
To be honest with you, my favorite lube is whichever lube the woman I'm with feels comfortable with, because not all women are the same.
True. There's some great water-based ones. Some women are more sensitive. Thank you, Jonathan. You sound like a very evolved, open, sexual man. I wish that, I hope a lot of men are listening to this and are inspired right now that it's all just sex. It's all about pleasure. Why not do what makes everyone feel good? Don't go anywhere. There's more Sex with Emily coming right up. We also got a question from Hector, 32, in San Bernardino, California. He has a question about lube shooter tips. And you're probably going, what the hell's a lube shooter? Well, you know that I'm a huge fan of lube. I think that lube is so underrated and that a lot of you just don't have lube. You don't have quality lube. You only use it if there's a huge problem. But I believe that every sex act is highly improved by adding a few drops of lube. Well, he said, my wife and I have recently been having a lot of pegging sex lately, meaning that she is penetrating him with a dildo in his anus. That's what it means. I just recently heard the relax, it's just anal episode. That was the first time I've heard about lube shooters. My question is, when applying the lube, do we insert it all the way in, and then eject the lube? Also, for the lube tablet, what brand do you suggest? All right. I wish I had a lube shooter here, but I don't. But that was a really fun episode. Relax, it's just anal. We had Alicia Sinclair on from B-Vibe. Her company is all butt plugs. She's literally like, nope, I'm not going to do anything but butt plugs. I'm going to do a lube shooter and I'm going to do it right. So a lube shooter just kind of looks like a syringe, but it has lube in it. So what you do is you fill it up with lube. My favorite lube for this is Pure Lube. They're actually the official anal lube sponsor of Sex with Emily, but they make a silicone lube. It's called Analese. You pour a little bit into the lube shooter, and you can use this in your vagina as well. But if you put it in the anus, you want to go about halfway in, and you want to fill the lube shooter up halfway as well. You put it halfway in, you want to put it all the way in, and then you just kind of slowly release it. And then there's like no mess, there's no cleanup. You know that you are well lubricated. Because remember, your anus is not self-lubricating. And so that's when tears happen. That's when anal sex can be super painful. So you want to always prepare for anal. And I love the idea of a lube shooter. And you can get lube shooters for like $12 in some places, which isn't a problem at all. That's like $12 for a lube shooter. I have a lube shooter at the office. That's another reason to go back to the office. I want to get a lube shooter and I want to try it. Let's do this email from Abby. She says, I've been dating a guy for about 5 months. And everything's going great for the most part. I trust him. I believe we've created a strong foundation. Although there's one thing that I cannot figure out how to navigate. He doesn't like being told what to do. While the sex is good, I feel like I'm putting in more effort. He's only gone down on me once, never tries to pleasure me in other ways besides with his penis. I've tried to tell him these are the things I would enjoy, but nothing's changed. How do I get him to put in more effort without him feeling like I'm telling him what to do? Let's break this down for Abby. I love when you guys start out like, everything's great, I love him, they're the best person ever, but there's one thing. Now, to me, this isn't just one little thing. This is a big thing. I understand that there's a lot of people, and I don't want to just say men, but in this case, I'm just going to say that don't want to take directions. I believe in some way it's because many men might feel, and women feel this too, don't get me wrong. We don't want feedback when we're trying to be sexual because we feel that it means that we are somehow broken and men have so much, or we're like failing in some way, or we're less manly. And my heart goes out to men. I say this all the time because you have so much pressure in a heterosexual relationship. You traditionally. Now, times they are changing, but you have to make the first move. You have to plan the date. You're supposed to know what you're doing sexually. And then someone says to you, oh, babe, I want this, I want that. And then you're like, don't tell me what to do. I know my way around your body and what I want. I mean, I'm thinking that's what it is. I have to think that's what it is. Like, you can tell me if you ever not wanted to take instructions from someone and why in the bedroom. But Abby, you feel like you're putting in more effort. You probably are. You probably are. I think the person, and the fact that he only goes out on you once and you've told him, it's not that you're telling him what to do. Like, let's break this down. I'm telling him what to do when he doesn't like it. I'm going to change the language here. You're not telling him what to do. You're having a healthy conversation about your sex life, which you should be doing 5 months in. You should be doing it 5 days in. And you're like, yeah, this is, hopefully we say it this way. It's really hot when you go down on me. I love it. That's like one of my favorite things. And by the way, for the majority of vulva owners, oral sex is one of their favorite things. Something with the external stimulation is what's going to do it for women. If you're talking about orgasms, you're talking about the most pleasure. That's where all the nerve endings are on the outside of the vagina. Problem is, a lot of people don't have this information that only 20% of women are going to orgasm from a penis. So he doesn't know any of this. He's like the majority of men who haven't listened to this show, who haven't ever researched on their own. They're just going off of porn and they're going off of what they might have learned from a friend or what they've seen, that penetrative sex is the magic. Like, that's what we're all working towards. Foreplay is just that. It's before the sex. Before the sex. It's not the actual sex. Foreplay, the boob, playing with the breast, going down, that's just a warm-up. That's the appetizer. But the magic is in the penetration. Penis goes into vagina, and that's where it happens. Now, I understand why that is a belief. I understand why people feel that way, because that's all we see. But like, in fact, we say penis vagina when really it's penis clitoris. It's penis clitoris. The clitoris is where most women are going to have orgasms and pleasure. So regardless, your boyfriend is still believing this old model, and this is what makes sense to people. They're like, well, this is what's going to happen. So you just have to educate him, Abby. I would say outside the bedroom, you guys know, like, I believe the best conversations about sex happen with timing and tone and turf under consideration. You want to do it at a right time when you're not stressed out and fighting about something else, or you're frustrated that your partner didn't do something. Right time. When you're not hungry, you're not anxious, you're not pissed off. And then your tone is always curious and light, and say, you know what, babe, this is, oh God, our sex has been, I so love when we're like making out, things are great. And you know what I know I've told you this, but what really gets me turned on, like what I fantasize about when you're not here, is the way you go down on me. It is so hot. That thing you've done, that one time you did it, whatever. But you don't want to be like, you never do it. I've told you this 5 times. Because nobody changes their behavior that way. They just don't. The second you get that tone, because I'm talking about tone, it's curious, it's light. It's not nagging. It's not saying you never do this and you don't do that, because that puts our partner on the defensive. And then it's turf. It is outside the bedroom. It is not, when it happened again, he just stuck his penis inside of you. He did 3 pumps. He came and he rolled over, and you're like, you know what? I really wish you would have gone down on me again. And I know that's when you want to have the conversation because you're frustrated. Has to happen later. That's my advice for you, because you're asking me, Abby, how do I get him to put in more effort without him feeling like I'm telling him what to do? Well, you could even say to him outside the bedroom, let's talk about our sex life. It's been 5 months in. You could even say to him, here's a great icebreaker for this conversation. What's your 3 most memorable times you've had sex? And then guess what, Abby? You can say to him, well, here's mine. One of them can be that time you went down on me. And then you could even from there say, and I really love when you go down on me. I mean, reinforce it in an environment where you're exchanging information and you're having a healthy conversation. That's when our partner can start to hear us. That's when we can start to have healthy conversations around sex, rather than the ones that are just go nowhere and we feel like our partner's not listening to us again. You guys call me every night. I told my partner that I needed her to initiate more and she just hasn't done it. I told him blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not working because I genuinely believe that we're all good people, that we all come onto the planet, we all born to this earth, we're good people. If we're in a relationship with someone, Why would we be in a relationship with someone deciding that we're going to be a bad lover? Like, I love this person, I'm going to be with Abby, but I'm just not going to meet any of her needs. I'm never going to go down on her, and I don't care if she has an orgasm. Like, I don't think that her partner is walking around thinking that, Abby. Highly doubt it. But the disconnect is that there's just not enough information that he has and education around like what works for you. And I'm not even saying this is every woman, like what Abby works for you, what's a big turn on. And I think that we have to all remember that our partners are not mind readers. They're maybe assuming on what little information they have about sex is what's going to turn you on. And most of the time, again, everything we've mostly learned about sex until this point isn't true. It doesn't work. It's not working for Abby. So, what is the one thing that you want your partner to do more of? Now, it could be in the bedroom or anywhere else. What's that one thing that you want them to do more of that they're not? Okay, this is from Instagram. Our Instagram is Sex with Emily. It's from a female, and she says, is it okay to always bring a clitoral vibrator into the bedroom if that's the only way you can finish with a partner? I love this question. So many women I know just keep their vibrators to themselves, and we leave it in our little drawer, but in our nightstand. And we're like, well, I have to just either fake this orgasm or pretend it's okay that I didn't orgasm. But I know there's this little powerful little magic right next to my bed, but I don't want my partner to feel bad about it. I don't want to feel shame. What is wrong if that is the only way you can orgasm? You're having an orgasm. Does it matter how it happened? Can we please let go of the fact that every orgasm is supposed to happen with a penis inside of a vagina? If I'm telling you it only happens 20% of the time, why are we so caught up that that's what it is? That's how it has to happen. I say, yeah. What I'm telling you is that you definitely want to talk to your partner ahead of time and say, hey, I've got this toy. It feels really good. What I do is I'll be like, check out my toy, like right when we're starting to like fool around. And then I pull it out. I'll just say, look at this toy. And first off, so many men that I'm with, they're expecting like a huge giant dildo. It's going to be bigger than them because that's how they picture vibrators. Then I turn it on and then I'll like slowly, like I'll get out some massage oil and I'll start to move it over their body, like over their chest. I'll start to tease them with it. I'll make out with them and then I'll like have it on their neck. And they're like, whoa, it feels so good because vibrations feel great all over your body. Our bodies are covered in nerve endings. So why just rely on our hands, right? You don't do that either. You can just so I just show them. And then I'll tease them. I'll use it maybe on their shaft. If I'm like going down on them, I'll like tickle their balls with it. I'll use, it's like, it becomes our toy. We're doing it together. Then when we're starting to have, penetrative sex, should it happen, then we're still using the toy. It's still in my hand. And then I'll like, okay, and here's how it goes on my clitoris. And that's how you do it. And I can't imagine that should be a problem. So to answer your question, Amber, female from Instagram, I think it's always okay to bring it into the bedroom as long as you introduce it. You don't just sometimes I think, think about it. Anyone gets up in the middle of sex, you're like, what happened? What are we doing? Like you have to have it out already. Introduce it to them, right? It's like going up to a dog or something. You can go up and warm them up. You don't just go up and pick up a dog. I don't know why this is my analogy, but you're like, hey, come here. Like you can smell my hand. Like, let me pet you. Same thing. You're like, look at this toy. Isn't it cute? Like this little pink. And then you show it to them and they're like, oh yeah, that's fun. Show me that. And it feels good to them. So if it feels good on them, they're not going to care that you're using it. All right, I gotta go. But don't worry, I'll be back soon with more Sex with Emily. You guys, there's so much more to talk about, so don't miss my next episode. Subscribe to Sex with Emily right now. Please like, review, and share this podcast with the ones you love. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com. Find us on all social media. It is @sexwithemily.